Welcome to the Pardis channel. Today we explain Exodus chapter 11 in a clear and simple way, step by step. We're standing right at the absolute climax of the Exodus narrative. I mean, think about it. After this long, devastating series of plagues, the tension between Moses and the ruler of Egypt has literally reached its breaking point. In this explainer, we're going to look really closely at just 10 verses. But let me tell you, these 10 verses, they contain the ultimate turning point of the entire story. We're going to take a clear step-by-step journey through the text to understand exactly who's speaking, what's happening, and why it matters so much. And throughout our study today, we're focusing strictly on the plain, literal, and simple meaning of the Hebrew text, so we can really grasp the exact historical and literary weight of what's unfolding right in front of us.
Okay, so here's our agenda. First up, context. Second, the final plague announced. Third, the midnight warning. Fourth, a clear distinction. Fifth, the hardened heart. And finally, key ideas, lessons, and a quick recap.
Before we hit verse 1, let's just briefly set the stage to understand the absolute gravity of this moment. The Israelites have been suffering under this grueling, cruel bondage in Egypt for a very, very long time. Moses has returned from the wilderness, commanded by God to demand their immediate release. And time again, Moses approaches Pharaoh, and time again, Pharaoh just flat out refuses. His stubbornness has brought a series of catastrophic plagues on the land. I mean, the water turned to blood, there were infestations of frogs and locusts, massive disease. Egypt is ecologically, economically, and socially shattered. Yet Pharaoh's resolve remains unbroken. And that brings us right to the precipice of the final, most severe decree.
To ensure our foundation is completely solid today, we are reading directly from the source text. Our goal here is to focus strictly on the plain, simple, and literal meaning of the Hebrew text for chapter 11. We aren't going to get sidetracked by deep symbolic interpretations or outside texts. We're simply letting the events and the precise words of this chapter speak for themselves. As we dive in, it's absolutely vital to remember the why. What is the core motivation behind all of these dramatic events? Well, the text tells us earlier that the Israelites groaned in their slavery, crying out under the sheer weight of generations of oppression. And their cry went up to God. God heard their groaning and remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So God is deeply and actively attentive to their suffering. This divine empathy is the driving force behind the whole narrative. The previous 9 plagues didn't break Pharaoh's stubbornness, so God is now preparing the ultimate intervention. Section 1. The final plague announced. Verse 1 kicks off the chapter by setting a definitive end date to this whole conflict. It says, "Now the Lord said to Moses, I will bring one more plague on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. And when he does, he will drive you out completely." This is it, the climax. God is telling Moses that the era of negotiation, it's over. The Hebrew word used here for plague is nega, which literally translates to a severe physical blow or strike. This isn't just a passing trouble, it's a decisive, crushing hit. And notice, God assures Moses that after this single strike, Pharaoh won't just reluctantly let them go. He will actively expel them. The Hebrew phrase here, garesh yageresh, implies a forceful, total expulsion. It's a complete 180 from Pharaoh's previous stance of unyielding control. Then, moving to verse 2, God gives a really specific, highly practical instruction. He tells Moses, "Tell the people that men and women alike are to ask their neighbors for articles of silver and gold." Now, we have to look closely at why this is happening. The Israelites have endured generations of cruel bondage. They were stripped of their dignity and forced into uncompensated labor that literally built the wealth of Egypt. So, asking for wealth here, it represents a miraculous shift in the power dynamic. It's profound justice, divine restitution. They are not fleeing as impoverished refugees, they are actively reclaiming the wages of their generational labor. The masters are freely giving their wealth to the slaves. It's incredible. Now, what's really interesting about verse 3 is the fascinating shift in the social dynamics of the nation. The text says, "The Lord made the Egyptians favorably disposed towards the people, and Moses himself was highly regarded in Egypt by Pharaoh's officials and by the people." Look at the contrast here. While Pharaoh remains fiercely stubborn and completely isolated in his hostility, his own officials and the everyday Egyptian citizens have developed a deep, reverent respect for Moses. They've seen his power, they've suffered the consequences of their king's pride, and they now recognize Moses' undeniable authority. Even if Pharaoh refuses to yield, his own people are already conceding defeat. Section 2. The Midnight Warning. With God's plan fully revealed, Moses now stands right before Pharaoh to deliver this horrifying ultimate decree. In verse 4, he says, "This is what the Lord says. About midnight, I will go throughout Egypt." This warning is terrifyingly precise. We get a specific time, about midnight. In Hebrew, that's Shatzoet Halila. In the ancient world, midnight was universally recognized as a time of absolute darkness, transition, and the complete loss of human control. It is the deepest part of the night. And then we get the who. God himself says, "I will go." Unlike the previous plagues where Moses stretched out his staff or Aaron struck the ground, this verse indicates the direct, unmediated involvement of the Creator himself at the stroke of midnight. Verse 5 really unpacks the devastating reality of this decree. Moses declares, every firstborn son in Egypt will die. From the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, to the firstborn son of the slave girl who is at her handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle as well. To fully grasp this, you need to understand the cultural weight of the Hebrew word bakor, meaning firstborn. In that culture, the firstborn was the ultimate symbol of a family's strength. It was their primary inheritance, the literal future of their bloodline. Striking the bakor means striking the very foundation of Egypt itself. And notice the absolute totality of it. It sweeps across every single social class with terrifying equality. From the golden throne down to the captive grinding grain and even the livestock, no oppressor is exempt. The agonizing aftermath is predicted in verse 6, where Moses says, there will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again. It paints this picture of an unimaginable, unprecedented national tragedy, just a devastating wail echoing from every single home. But the text immediately juxtaposes this heavy, heavy grief with the experience of the Israelites. And this stark contrast highlights the massive difference between a land plunged into absolute mourning and a land preserved in profound peace. Section 3, a clear distinction. Moses continues the warning in verse 7, stating, but among the Israelites, not a dog will bark at any man or animal. Then you will know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. I love this detail because it brilliantly illustrates this concept of miraculous protection using a very specific Hebrew idiom. The literal translation is actually, not a dog will sharpen its tongue. Back then, dogs were scavengers and guard animals, easily startled by death or chaos. But amidst all the unspeakable chaos happening in Egypt, the Israelite camps are going to experience a tranquility so profound, so undisturbed, that not even a sensitive guard dog will be startled enough to make a sound. It's just an incredibly poetic way of expressing absolute divine security. In verse 8, Moses finishes his address to Pharaoh with a bold final prediction. He says all of Pharaoh's officials, the ones who already respect him, are going to come down, bow before him, and beg, "Go, you and all the people who follow you." After predicting this total capitulation, the text notes a deeply profound human moment. Then Moses, hot with anger, left Pharaoh. Moses has been remarkably patient through months of plagues. But here, having just delivered a message of unimaginable death, a death driven entirely by Pharaoh's relentless arrogance, Moses reaches his human limit. He's had it. He leaves the palace absolutely furious, walking away from the king for the very last time. Section 4, the hardened heart. At this point, you really have to stop and ask a pivotal question. Why did Pharaoh refuse to listen, despite such devastating, undeniable warnings? His nation is in ruins, his economy is destroyed, his own people respect Moses, and yet he remains completely unyielding. Why? Well, the text answers this in verse 9. The Lord had said to Moses, "Pharaoh will refuse to listen to you, so that my wonders may be multiplied in Egypt." The source text frames this very clearly. It tells us Pharaoh's refusal was an anticipated part of the narrative. The Hebrew word used for wonders here is mofet, which refers to awe-inspiring miracles that completely break and transcend the natural order. Pharaoh's stubbornness serves as a platform for God to multiply these wonders, definitively demonstrating his supreme authority and proving once and for all that the supposed nature gods of Egypt are entirely powerless. Verse 10 provides the final summary of the chapter's action. Moses and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, but the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go out of his country. The Hebrew word used here for hardened is chizak, which can also be translated as strengthened. It's a really complex dynamic. The text impartially reports this tension between human stubbornness and divine will. God gave Pharaoh the strength to endure the plagues so that Pharaoh's true inner stubborn will could fully play out. Moses did his part. Pharaoh resisted out of his own pride, and ultimately the Lord strengthened his resolve, locking in the events that will inevitably lead to the midnight plague. Section 5, key ideas and life lessons. Having walked through the text step by step, we can pull two major, simple themes directly from the narrative. The first is distinction, evidenced in verse 7, where not a dog sharpens its tongue among the Israelites. This signifies the absolute divine protection of the innocent, while judgment falls on the surrounding oppressive structures. The second theme is justice, clearly shown in verses 2 and 3. By instructing the Israelites to ask for silver and gold, the text emphasizes the moral necessity of reclaiming wealth and receiving rightful compensation after enduring generations of cruel, unpaid, forced bondage. From a practical standpoint, what can we learn from this ancient text for our own lives? First, we're reminded with absolute clarity that God hears the cries of those who are suffering. Their pain doesn't go unnoticed, and justice, even if it takes generations, is eventually exacted. Second, we see the sheer importance of heeding serious warnings. Arrogance creates a massive blind spot to reality. Pharaoh had every opportunity to observe the ruin around him and change course, but his ego just wouldn't allow it. And finally, we witness the deeply destructive consequences of a hardened heart. When a leader, or anyone really, becomes so deeply entrenched in their own pride that their heart becomes chazak, unyielding, it doesn't just hurt them. Pharaoh's refusal brought unprecedented ruin upon his entire nation. Our stubbornness rarely impacts only us. It radiates outward, causing severe collateral damage to everyone around us.
Section 6. Lessons and Recap. To summarize our journey today, in just 10 powerful verses, we saw God announce the final devastating plague, the nega, that would finally break Egypt's grip. We saw Moses instruct the Israelites to ask for their rightful compensation, shifting the economic power overnight. We witnessed Moses deliver the terrifying midnight decree to a stubborn Pharaoh, drawing a sharp, protective line around the peaceful camps of Israel. And finally, we saw Moses leave the palace in hot anger, his heart heavy with the tragic weight of Pharaoh's unbreakable resolve.
And so we leave the chapter with Moses stepping out of the palace, the clock ticking ominously towards midnight. The warning has been given, the divine decree is set, and the stage is prepared for the most transformative, consequential night in Israel's history. But how will the Israelites themselves be protected from this plague? What specific instructions will they follow to ensure that incredible peace within their camp? Well, that is exactly what we will discover as we move forward into the next text. Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.